Unless you be living under a barnacle-covered rock, ye know that today, September 19th, be National Talk Like a Pirate Day. A day that harkens back to an important piratical tradition all the way back in the golden age of piracy in the year 1995. And that not be good enough reason for you to drink rum, today also be National Butterscotch Pudding Day. Arr! In fact, every day on the calendar represents several of these unofficial holidays, in addition to numerous awareness weeks and months. Some are supported by governments in various ways. They might represent awareness of a social movement or an illness. They might represent a celebration of a cultural icon or a type of food, often supported by whatever industry produces that food. Today is International Talk Like a Pirate Day, but yesterday was National Cheeseburger Day, and tomorrow is National Miniature Golf Day. Where did this idea even come from? Well, the underlying idea would have been familiar to an ancient Roman, but each of these celebrations has a history all its own. History, ya scurvy-billed rats, that is deserving to be remembered. Arr! National Talk Like a Pirate Day is clearly intended as a parodic tradition, and its foundation is fitting to that. According to a 2003 edition of the Eugene, Oregon Register Guard, the idea for the day came during a 1995 racquetball game between two friends from Oregon, John Bauer and Mark Summers. In a 2003 interview, Bauer explained, "One of us must have strained something and let out an arr." The two decided then and there that what the nation needed was a Talk Like a Pirate Day. The actual date of the game was June 6th, but in respect to the anniversary of the D-Day landings, they decided to choose another date, the Register Guard explains. They picked September 19th because that's the birthday of Summers' ex-wife, so he could remember it. The holiday was only observed privately among friends until the two sent an email to nationally syndicated columnist and humorist Dave Barry, who championed the holiday in a 2002 column. For the record, Molly Babel, a University of British Columbia assistant professor of linguistics, quoted in a 2013 edition of the Vancouver Sun, argues that pirates of the Golden Age most likely spoke with a British West Country dialect. Not all of these types of awareness days are so lighthearted. For example, September 19th is also Global Aortic Dissection Awareness Day. Described by the website Patient Innovation as the most common life-threatening disorder affecting the aorta, a group of 17 patients from Scandinavia affected by the condition was formed on September 19, 2014, and a global initiative was started by survivor Timo Soderlund the following year. The Awareness Day works in conjunction with the Thoracic Aortic Aneurysm and Dissection Awareness Month, which has been recognized since 2005. According to Patient Innovation, if we can get our friends to get organized nationally over the globe, we can start to work more structured together with scientists, researchers, and medical companies to find better solutions to prevent our illness and to help the ones already ill. Awareness days are essentially marketing campaigns and today are intimately linked to social media. The Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust suggests that you use the hashtag aortic dissection at aorticdissectct. But such awareness days predate modern social media. For example, Breast Cancer Awareness Month began in 1985 as a partnership between the American Cancer Society and the pharmaceutical division of Imperial Chemical Industries. And the well-known pink ribbon has been used as its symbol since 1992, all long before the advent of Twitter. The history of health awareness days tracks back to World Health Day. Constitution for the World Health Organization was signed by the members of the United Nations in July 1946 and was finally ratified on April 7, 1948. That year, the WHO held the first World Health Assembly, which designated April 7th as World Health Day, and the first observance was in 1950. According to the World Health Organization, the day is celebrated annually and each year draws attention to a specific health topic of concern to people all over the world. WHO then works with governmental and non-governmental organizations to schedule regional and local events to draw attention to the annual subject. In fact, the origin may go back farther than the WHO to 14 international sanitary conferences held between 1851 and 1938, although their purpose was to standardize international quarantine regulations and they did not include public information campaigns. Today, health awareness days have become quite common. A 2015 study published in the American Journal of Public Health notes that health awareness initiatives are a ubiquitous intervention strategy. Nearly 200 health awareness days, weeks, and months are on the U.S. National Health Observances calendar, and more than 145 Awareness Day bills have been introduced in Congress since 2005. The sheer number has led to questions about whether they can be effective, as a 2020 article on the website Social Media Explorer opines. By having so many days, we have allowed awareness days to become just another day. They're around all the time, and they become meaningless. The outcome of promoting so many days is that you promote none at all. An example might be National Butterscotch Pudding Day. While the day seems to be ubiquitous across the many web-based calendars that list awareness days, none seem to know where the day came from. Dayfinders.com writes, with limited knowledge about the origins of butterscotch pudding, even less is known about the history of the National Butterscotch Pudding Day. We don't know when, where, and how it began. And National Dayfinder writes simply that National Day Calendar continues to research the history of this food holiday. While there are numerous mentions of the day that come up on a search of newspapers.com, the oldest newspaper story listing September 19th as National Butterscotch Pudding Day seems to be in the food section of the Lancaster, Pennsylvania Sunday News in August 2000. And that column says nothing about the history of the celebration. While Google search turns up plenty of mentions of the day as well as recipes, it does not turn up an actual history of when the day started, by whom, or even an industry organization responsible. Moreover, there seems to be scant evidence that the day has helped the reputation of the once very popular dessert. Food critic John Wright complained in a 2019 edition of the Washington Post that butterscotch pudding mixes have become difficult to find, noting that I can't pinpoint when exactly butterscotch was jackhammered off the Mount Rushmore of pudding flavors, in the past few years, I think. That is to say, for all the attention it gets in newspapers, National Butterscotch Pudding Day seems to have been something of a bust. In fact, the reasoning behind the days itself is somewhat suspect, as Social Media Explorer says. But it's this mysterious willingness to celebrate something on any random day, just because someone has said to, that's interesting. For some, saying it's National Ice Cream Day is enough of a reason for them to go out and buy ice cream. It echoes the sentiment. If they jumped off a cliff, would you? And in a way, it kind of does. Just mentioning National Ice Cream Day, which is celebrated annually on the third Sunday in July and was officially proclaimed by President Ronald Reagan in 1984, who said that ice cream was a nutritious and wholesome food, makes me want to go get some ice cream. But does National Ice Cream Day really work? According to a 2011 report by the United States Department of Agriculture, the roughly 71 million gallons of ice cream sold in the United States in July was only in the middle of the pack. In fact, more ice cream was sold in March, although that might be related to March 21st, which is National Free Ice Cream Cone Day. While July is National Ice Cream Month, August is the month in which the most ice cream is sold. And January is the second lowest selling ice cream month, behind December, despite January 15th being National Strawberry Ice Cream Day. The website National Today, which lists its goal is to gather all the special holidays and moments from around the world, lists 22 national days related to ice cream. Oddly, while a 2020 YouGov survey listed chocolate as America's favorite ice cream flavor, National Today does not list a National Chocolate Ice Cream Day. While peach ice cream didn't rank in the top 13, despite National Peach Ice Cream Day on July 17th. To put it bluntly, the statistical evidence seems to support the idea that the eating of ice cream is unrelated to the proclamation of National Ice Cream Days. And yet, for some reason, we continue to add even more of these unofficial holidays, leading to the question, why? And when did this all start? A 2020 edition of Discover magazine notes that if there's one thing that humans from throughout history have in common, it's a love of celebration. The magazine was specifically referencing a 3-day Roman celebration held in February or March called Anisteria, or the Festival of New Wine. While the specific traditions of the festival are lost to history, Discover notes that the festival is largely thought to have been a drunken blur of wine consumption. The festival was really a harvest festival, as Discover continues. The ancient festivals were raucous affairs, boasting ample booze and a good reason to get together with family and friends and enjoy the fruits of the year's harvests. Obviously, harvest festivals continue in their own form today, whether in a more literal sense, like Homoa, celebrated in August by the Ga people of Ghana, or the more symbolic nature of America's Thanksgiving holiday, that while not necessarily a drunken blur of wine consumption, do represent a good reason to get together with family and friends and enjoy the fruits of the year's harvests. While there might not be a clear direct link between Anisteria and National Ice Cream Day, it's easy to see how both represent a human desire for celebration. And the ancient Roman celebration of Anisteria gives some historical provenance to wine-based holidays like Open That Bottle Night, celebrated the last Saturday in February. The website Wine Folly explains this particular holiday. Have you been saving that perfect bottle of wine just waiting for an excuse to crack it open? Well, tonight's your night. If that holiday was not directly inspired by Anisteria, it certainly seems at least to be in the same spirit. Many of the things we celebrate today were derived from ancient traditions. In fact, the 1582 reform by Pope Gregory XIII called the Gregorian calendar was established because inaccuracies in the Julian calendar were causing the celebration of Easter to be off. The website medieval.net explains that medieval celebrations revolved around feast days that had pagan origins and were based on ancient agricultural celebrations that marked when certain crops should be planted or harvested. That is to say, one of the most basic reasons for calendars was to keep track of celebrations, often tied to harvests and thus feasts, which might help explain our fascination with all these commemoration days. Celebrations are also tied to culture and national history. Most countries celebrate some version of a national day, with a 2013 edition of the Washington Post noting with surprise that Britain and Denmark are among the few nations without a national day. And many of the holidays that are listed on calendars like National Today represent national histories. For example, in addition to being National Talk Like a Pirate Day and National Butterscotch Pudding Day, today is also a Chilean holiday, Day of the Glories of the Army, which is part of Chile's multi-day celebration of its independence and is commemorated with a military parade. Such celebrations of national heritage can actually be perplexing. For example, Cinco de Mayo is celebrated more vigorously in the United States than it is in Mexico, and many Americans are surprised to find out that it does not represent Mexico's Independence Day, which is celebrated on September 16th. And while St. Patrick's Day, representing the patron saint of Ireland, is seen as the nation's national holiday, traditional celebrations in Ireland were quite simple, whereas in the U.S. the day, which celebrates the 31.5 million Americans of Irish heritage, is a much more raucous affair, more resembling Anisteria's drunken blur. And of course, the excuses to get together with family and friends are also representative of the sensibilities of the modern era and show in some of the stranger celebrations on the calendar. Harvest celebrations might have less meaning in today's automated and global world where only some 28% of the world's population and just 10% of the U.S. population are employed in agriculture. But by contrast, more than a third of the U.S. adult population describes themselves as fans of Star Wars. Which brings us to the day before Cinco de Mayo. Reader's Digest called May the 4th, a play on the famous line, "May the Force be with you," half earnest celebration, half shameless marketing bonanza. But according to a May 2019 issue of Newsweek, the first published example of catching that connection came from an unexpected place: the election of Margaret Thatcher. The famous conservative took office as the first female prime minister of the United Kingdom on May 4th, 1979, 2 years after the release of the original Star Wars. On the day she took office, the Tory party ran an ad in the London Evening News congratulating Thatcher with the Star Wars-derived, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations." Regardless of whether you think the Iron Lady was a Jedi or a Sith, the idea stuck and slowly grew among the fan community. StarWars.com remarks Star Wars fans chose the day to hold theme parties or host community events and gatherings. Others simply used it as a time to revisit the films. The first official celebration of the day was at the Toronto Underground Cinema in 2001, although the unofficial holiday didn't take off until it was embraced by Lucasfilm in 2011, and now fans sometimes recognize a second Star Wars Day with the Revenge of the Fifth. Another unofficial holiday that represents changing culture is April 20th, or 420, celebrated by cannabis culture. Recognition of the counterculture holiday has grown in importance in the U.S. as more states have legalized the drug. There are multiple origin stories for how April 20th came to symbolize smoking marijuana. One story is that 420 refers to the California legal criminal statute for marijuana use, or was a code used by police officers to refer to marijuana smoking in progress. But there's no evidence that such a code 420 was ever used by police. A second possibility is that the number 420 is a reference to a 1939 short story by famous science fiction author H.P. Lovecraft. In The Walls of Eryx, the protagonist is accidentally drugged by a mirage plant on Venus, and in the story he notices the effects wearing off at exactly 420. But according to an appropriately dated April 20th, 2020 edition of Vox, the number tracks back to 1971, when a group of high school students from Marin County's San Rafael High School would meet to smoke marijuana at 4:20 in the afternoon, a time when most after-school activities had ended. One of the original group members, Dave Reddix, became a roadie with the band The Grateful Dead, and the group helped to popularize the idea of a celebration on April 20th. A group of fans called Deadheads handed out flyers in January 1999 suggesting a celebration on April 20th, and that is generally acknowledged to have been the start of the annual celebration that now is often celebrated by sales at legal pot stores and has also gained popularity internationally. While the popularity of such celebrations galvanizes various subcultures, the sheer number and dizzying array of unofficial days is stunning. According to the calendar on National Today, September 18th, yesterday, was Chiropractic Founders Day, Global Company Culture Day, Hug a Greeting Card Writer Day, Chilean Independence Day, International Equal Pay Day, International Red Panda Day, Locate an Old Friend Day, National Cartonnage Day, celebrating the making of boxes, National Colton Day, celebrating anyone named Colton, National Day of Civic Hacking, where people with computer skills use their skills for good, National First Love Day, where you celebrate your first romantic encounter, National HIV, AIDS, and Aging Awareness Day, raising awareness for issues with treating aging Americans with HIV, AIDS, National Report Kickback Fraud Day, National Respect Day, which encourages people to act more respectfully towards others, National Purple Bra Day, raising awareness of breast cancer in Western Australia, Read an E-Book Day, U.S. Air Force Day, celebrating the establishment of the United States Air Force in 1947, Wife Appreciation Day, World Water Monitoring Day, intended to raise awareness among civilians about the importance of regularly monitoring their water sources, and, of course, National Cheeseburger Day. Again, that was all just one day on just one of the many calendars tracking such days, although September 18th does seem to be a bit of an overachiever in terms of unofficial celebrations. And some of the calendars list today as not just National Talk Like a Pirate Day, but National Meow Like a Pirate Day, representing that important connection between pirates and cats. Meow. But there are plenty of criticisms of these types of awareness days. Some people complain that we've made so many that they become essentially meaningless. Others complain that awareness days are the laziest form of action. I mean, changing your profile picture because of an awareness day, that's something that they call slacktivism. Some studies question whether awareness days are effective, although other charities have suggested that they see increases in fundraising on awareness days and have been able to move the needle sometimes on some types of legislation. What seems clear, though, is that the trend is going to continue. National Today even includes a link if you want to suggest new holidays, as the ancient human penchant for celebration runs into the excesses of modern technology. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The History Guy. Check out our community on thehistoryguideguild.locals.com, our webpage at thehistoryguy.com, and our merchandise at teespring.com, or book a special message from The History Guy on Cameo. And if you'd like more episodes on Forgotten History, all you have to do is subscribe.